Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Trident Talks. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Dean Munslow, who owns a business called Islantea. I think I've said that right. We've just had a little conversation about this offline. There's a funny story behind it. I will let Dean first. Let's start with, me and Dean know each other reasonably well. We've worked together for a little while. I'll let Dean give you a bit of an intro into who he is and what his background is.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. I'm really happy to be here today and to talk with you in the Trident community. Hopefully you can hear me okay. There's a little bit echoey there on the call, but my background's in sales and business development for 20 years. I started off in large company in IBM, lived in the UK and in France, but through my career sort of moved towards middle-sized companies and medium-sized companies, right through to, before founding Islantea, working for three high-growth US companies that were sort of landing in Europe that then went on to IPO or be acquired. Most recently, I was the UK and I sales director for CrowdStrike and built their first team there, up to 8 people. And what I suppose that really kind of enabled me to do was really look at being a kind of unique position to see some of the consistent best practices in scaling and business revenue, and that's really the sort of idea behind Islantea. Yeah,
nice. No, I think you've see from your profile, right, and obviously from conversations we've had, that you've got a real mix of working in large corporates and those up and coming startups that have eventually IPO'd, which is it's quite rare to find. Some people either do one or the other. It's safe to say you've got a really good mix of experience. Probably good and bad stories to tell from all of them, I'd imagine. So it'd be good to know that people I know, I think I know a little bit about Islantea. It'll be good to understand the history of what you guys, why you guys formed, what you guys do, and essentially what you guys do to within organisations, right? How do you help them?
Yeah, look, I think we've got a great UK and European tech scene. When we look at sort of C through to Series B, we've developed some great technologies in many different areas. But perhaps where we're a little short compared to the US, for example, is in that sales maturity and sales execution. And what I wanted to be able to do is and I kind of did this naturally through the different career stages, was sort of look intrinsically at why sales were performing well, or what the elements were that the team or the individuals were doing that were actually being successful. And I wanted to take some of that and bring that to closer to home, to the UK and EMEA companies. So I developed Islantea, where we do a couple of piece of work, quite short, sharp pieces of work that provide impact quickly and quick time to value.
Yeah.
So in the first phase, effectively look at the current maturity of a business. And this is really answering the questions about where is that business at the moment and why are they there? What have they been doing to date that's putting them in that category of maturity? And I have a kind of a model there, which is bronze, silver, gold and platinum, depending on a few elements. And then the second part then is to really take that piece of work and map that into a framework that I've developed with best practices, which look at a sales process, which looks at the tools that a salesperson will need as they come in, and also what are the execution elements, what are the things that good salespeople do at certain parts of the sales cycle, and I make recommendations then into usually the CEO of that small company.
Yeah. So and it's safe to say, right, that you guys, I know a majority of your clients that you would work with or want to work with tend to be startups, and I know that you have a lot of a network within the startup scene, which is good. But it's not just for startups, right? If there was a business that has been going for a number of years and they wanted to increase their sales team or maybe change the structure, that's also something that you guys can help with, right?
Yeah, we have done it. It tends to be more in kind of a change of leadership where that happens, and being honest, where maybe it's not taken off in the way that they expected, and they want to kind of look internally at what they did perhaps wrong and how they can improve that before rehiring the sales team. Where there's a CRO in place, maybe sort of Series B, C, and further, they tend to have their own way of working.
Yeah, of course.
So, we'll probably touch on what are the elements that CEOs that I work with want to consider and their challenges. And, I think that's part of it. But, I also did mention, of course, at the end of those phases, that they often look to see who can actually come in to do that piece of work and then take on where Islam to help them. And so, of course, we partner, and as you know, Trident's one of our partners in the area of helping CEOs resource.
Yeah, no, good. I think it's it's a package, right? It's not just going in and saying, right, do this, and then not actually do anything about it. We try and help end to end, right? Give them a solution to the problem that they're facing. And because you've been there and done it, that's why it's so credible. Just touching on what you said around challenges for CEOs, especially of startups, what do you see as like some of the main challenges that these guys face?
Yeah, it's been really interesting actually over the last couple of years to see that the challenge is quite consistent, and I termed it really the kind of CEO or founder conundrum, because they've got to a point where they've got the minimum viable product, they've got product market fit, and they've done founder-led sales. Yeah. But then there's a big gap between that and taking that forward to a repeatable sales process. And it's pretty difficult for tech founders who are not from a sales background to see, how that could work or put that in place. And so they have a couple of options, really. The first option is they sort of black box sales, and they hire a sales leader and put full responsibility on that sales leader to build out the team and build out the engine. And there's challenges with that in attracting the best caliber of sales individual, because it's seen as being a bit risky in honesty, working for such a startup. Also, if they come into the business at that point, it's trying to roll your sleeves up and do the leadership as well as the deals, and that's not for everyone. So the pool of talent's challenge, and it's a high cost. Being honest, those individuals and good individuals are a high cost and a big risk. So that's number one. The second challenge that they have then is, okay, if I don't do that, maybe I can just replicate myself. If I can do deals, some founders think, well, I'll just hire some salespeople. They're professionals. They'll just do the deals in the same way. And the challenge there, of course, is that salespeople can come in, but if they haven't got the repeatable process in place and understand all the use cases, as well as a founder who's lived and breathed the company for a long period of time, they have to build those themselves. They have to build those tools, and they're looking for that direction. If it's not there, then quite quickly they feel under pressure, and then they can move on. And I've seen many founders have 5 or 6 people leave the company, and then go back to so, go ahead, Sean.
No, I was going to say we see that quite a lot. I think, especially not to silo these guys, right? But there's a lot of people that come out of, maybe they're ex-military, or they were ex-military one time ago, or they could be ex-law enforcement. They've worked for a business for 10 years. They've got the commercial experience. They've then come out of that and built their own business or startup. And they automatically think, just because they're ex-military or ex-law enforcement, that anyone else who's ex-military or ex-law enforcement can do sales as well as they've done. But and I know that's not always the case, right? And it's interesting when you see that happen. It's just trying to educate them to be like, there are other options out there.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, and trying to give them a view, sort of wider education, and that's the premise really behind creating the company, is that there is sort of knowledge here which I'd like to share and replicate across numerous founders to just help them grow. And one part of my business has really grown is that VCs, I've been fortunate that the beginning of this, CEOs would recommend me to other CEOs, and then of course they'd recommend me to their VC, who then want to recommend me onto their portfolio companies, and they don't have that education. So the first part really is trying to understand, giving them the understanding of what sales really is. Okay, and once they've got that, they have the opportunity to work, and once they've got the guide rails in place and they've got a best practice process and they've got the tools and the assets, they're sort of more set up for success, and actually they can optimize their existing team, get more revenue, and then the benefit of that being that as that revenue grows, you start to de-risk the next hire, and you actually attract better candidates because you've got more of those customer cases and references that you are looking for. And that's how we kind of bridge the gap between founder-led sales into a repeatable sales engine.
Okay, that's really interesting, and I agree with everything you're saying. I know we spoke about this loads before, right? Businesses make the mistake of just thinking, I can hire a salesperson to do everything for me. I can then step away, and 9 times out of 10 it fails. And it's not till the 3rd, 4th time, like you just mentioned, of them hiring someone, they've burnt a load of cash doing it, that they realise actually something needs to change. And I know that we've put you in touch with people that we work with and said, look, Dean's the sort of person that can help you, right? He can educate you on process. He can show you not necessarily the right way, because is there a wrong, is there a right? Who knows? Some people might do it their own way, but at least show you some process and a structure into how to build the business in what we feel is the right way. So I guess on the note that you mentioned, and again, there might not be a right or wrong, but how early do you advise founders should sort of look to bring in a commercial team, whether it's a person or a team of people into a business, so they can step away from being the only sole point of sort of revenue, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's down to the knowledge of the CEO. My personal experience is that you can't really black box that and not understand it as a CEO. You need to have enough knowledge, not to be the expert, but to ask the right questions of your CRO or sales leader, and to have that back and forth challenge about where they're going. And so outside of my core business, I also sit on the board of one company, and I advise long-term a company, their CEO. In both cases, I'm advising the CEO, and they're kind of using me as a way to really educate themselves and become more mature. And I think once you've got that, then you're in a position to be able to de-risk that next step. And if you find somebody that you feel really has the right cultural fit and the energy for the business, then that can be sort of relatively early on. What we're trying to do is minimize the time before you can ramp into that, and provide some assurance with having already in place, when the leader comes on or the salesperson comes on, some guidelines that they can use to execute effectively. So it kind of depends on the education to your answer. It depends on the CEO being comfortable that when you would bring those people, there's not like a number or a revenue target or a value. That completely depends on the business and average deal sizes and targets and revenues. I think it's more the education.
Potentially, would funding come into play to a certain degree as well? If that depended on how much funding they're receiving, also what the expectations of the VC that's backing them, if it's VC backed, what their expectations are on growth and that side of things as well, would probably all come into play, I would imagine.
Yes, I think it's interesting when I see some of the investor directors putting pressure, for want of a better word, on the CEO to take salespeople early, because they're not necessarily from a sales background either, so they think, well, it's bringing the experts, which I can understand. And if they put money into the business from their venture fund, then they want to start to see results back. So that's the case. I think in general, you start to see that a CRO starts to come on board at Series B. Yeah. Before then, some can take it earlier, take a sales leader earlier. Some will take it a bit later. But I've also seen businesses work without a sales leader for a number of years, without having to make that step straight away. So I think it depends a little bit on the maturity of the operation.
Agreed. And I think that's what, I guess, my point in general, right? And one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation with you is there's no right or wrong, and it's through the process that you do when you go into an organization is that you determine what's maybe right for them and what the next steps are, as opposed to, because I know you're very consultative in that approach, in that sense, that your approach is, it's different for everyone, and it's not just one size fits all, which is good in my opinion.
Yeah, we're trying to do something a bit different from a training. CEOs can go out and get training or sales training, and that's great. There's some great methodologies out there. They come in and say, this is what you should put in place for your qualification methodology, for example, and they put that in, and the CEO and the team can start to use it, but then it sort of falls away unless it's consistently operationalized in the business, that people use it and it's put into Salesforce, CRM system, whatever it might be. So you could do training, or you could do some, operational work. What we try to do is do that first part to really look at where you are. Let's say you're at silver based on your process and your assets. The key then in the second part is to look at what really good quality companies that have scaled have done in the gaps which will be the most effective for you. So typically I will give you 5 recommendations to a CEO. And the idea is if they take those 5 recommendations on, they will really quite quickly move from, say, in this case, silver to gold. And that provides, massive difference in conversion of first meetings, ultimately revenue generation and pipeline generation and these elements. But we don't know what it is until you've done the first part, because,
of course.
Just a very quick story, some clients will say, well, actually, we're spending too much time in the technical labs and in the technical demos. We need a way to sort of time bound that. And you can say, right, okay, there's these types of things you can do around joint success criteria, or whatever it might be. But actually, when you go in and do the analysis in the first phase, you realise that it's up front, it's in the qualification, it wasn't right. Yeah. So you're now working with the wrong set of people in the wrong way. And that's why. So you should actually change up front and not the latter. So it's only till you know that, you know what to recommend. And we're a mixture between training, operational, providing IP and assets to just do the right thing for that company at that time.
And I'd imagine, like everything, right? Sometimes when you're giving them this feedback and this overview of what you've seen, sometimes the CEOs might not like it, right? Like they might think they've got a perfectly well-oiled machine, and the truth is they haven't. And it's just something you guys have got to overcome, right? It happens.
It's interesting. I've not had so much that once they've engaged and we are working together.
Yeah, it's getting to that point, right? Getting to that point. Yeah,
if they've just hired a CRO or a sales leader, that dynamic doesn't work well, just because I think the CEO has put somebody in place and wants to have them run the whole maturity growth area, and it wouldn't be right perhaps to bring in a consultant. So that the ones actually working with the leadership team, sales VP and or CEO, my feedback has always been that that's something that can really help me, and you can always find value for them. So no, I haven't had that yet.
No, I mean I've only heard good things, so don't worry. And I know we got a few mutual clients that we've worked with that we actually didn't know you were involved with until afterwards, and it's always very, very positive. So I'm sure you're doing things right. So, and look, just I guess last question for me is more like personally around you, right? So you've gone from being a sales leader in a high performing environment that's always full on to now doing this, where you get to work with loads of different startups, well, mainly startups. What do you find is like the most enjoyable part of being able to do this, right, and help businesses from the ground up?
Yeah, it's completely different work lifestyle balance, different person, I guess, in terms of the way I can influence and operate my days and my clients. And what's really fantastic is that I'm working over a short period of time with really intelligent individuals that have come up with amazing ideas, and they just really want to positively move forward. So all the lessons learned or challenges that I've been through, and I'm able to give that to them, and they really want to take it on board and they use it. And so what's brilliant at the end of the engagement is that you see that they take that, put it into the business. And when I follow up with them a couple of months later, 3 months later, it's those positive stories that say, hey, we're using this qualification now with bigger companies and it's brilliant. It really worked what you told about this. I mean, that means more than anything for me. And also, being able to invest into some of these companies as well has been great and helping them grow. So, no, all the people that you meet, it's a complete mix of technologies, different industries, fantastic.
Yeah, no, awesome, good answer. I'll take that. Cool. Look, I think I've really enjoyed speaking, and I appreciate you taking time to come on. Yeah, I think we'll leave it there. That was good. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Happy to chat, and let me know if you want to do one of these in the future. And all the best.
Awesome. Thanks, team.